Hey everybody, Nick Furshaw here, Greg Lawless there for MLSsoccer.com. We're talking about the CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers for the U.S. national team. And Greg, 2 games in the books, and not a surprise the U.S. national team undefeated so far, but different results here. A win over Antigua and Barbuda and a draw down in Guatemala. What do you make of the results so far?
Well, I think that ultimately when they looked at these 2 games to begin with, when they had to go down to Central America to take on Guatemala, if they got 4 points out of those first 2, I think Jurgen Klinsmann and company would be pretty happy with it when they look at the long term of this qualifying in this group stage. But I think that considering they had the lead against Guatemala in the second half with 10 minutes to go and they gave it up, I think that probably the U.S. will believe that they should have gotten 6 points out of all of this.
Some questions about the lineups for Jurgen Klinsmann's teams. Give me one guy who's impressed you and one guy who needs to play better.
Well, I think that everyone was impressed with Fabian and everything that he's done. His ability to get into the attack on the left side. He ended up creating the goal for Clint Dempsey against Guatemala. His speed, his quickness, and his fearlessness going into the attack has been very good. I also want to put a little asterisk and say, I thought Geoff when he came in against Guatemala, also did very well in the second half. Probably looked a little bit better than Clarence Goodson did. I think from a disappointment standpoint, Landon Donovan has to stand out for me. He didn't really show what he's capable of doing. He doesn't seem to have that real zip going at defenders. In the Guatemala game in particular, he was pretty invisible and absent for most of the game. So I think he obviously has the talent. We know that. Will he pick it up once the next qualifiers come up?
And he played so well in that tune-up against Scotland. I think everybody was expecting Landon Donovan to play well in these qualifiers. Still some work to do for him, but if you look at that roster, there might be some more additions going forward this summer. Is there one player on the outside you'd like to see in?
Well, you know, I was talking about it with someone earlier today, and we were thinking, it would be interesting to have a player who can hit a free kick, especially on goal. We saw Marco Pappa's goal from Guatemala and what that was. Right now on this U.S. team, as we saw it over the last couple of weeks, it really is no one out there that can really hit that type of free kick. Brad Davis could hit a free kick like that. It would be interesting to see if Brad Davis were called into this national team, even as a set-piece specialist or a guy you can just put out on the left side, just whip in crosses for Dempsey, for Altidore, some of these big guys that can actually get to them.
You talk about all the players, the big-name players, a lot of eyes on them. What about Jurgen Klinsmann? He might face more pressure than anybody on this team. What do you make of Jurgen Klinsmann's tactics so far?
So far, I think he's done the right thing. I mean, obviously against Antigua and Barbuda, they knew they were going to sit back, so you just have to go out and attack. I don't think he was happy with having let up a goal. Now, that was something they did not want to do. Remember, in a group stage, goal differential could matter in the end. So I don't think that was something that he was happy with. But against Guatemala, I loved the high tempo. There was a lot of pressure. The U.S. came out very, very strong and tried to play a high tempo game, which is what he has said he wants. From a tactical standpoint, the 4-3-3 seems to be gelling a little bit more. I'm still curious as to who's the best option up top. Herculez Gomez started up there in the second game against Guatemala. It was Terrence Boyd up there against Antigua. Ultimately, I think Josie Altidore is the best player. When he came in against Guatemala, he actually started to energize the U.S. a little bit in the attack. So I think Klinsmann will be happy, and I'm pretty happy so far with what I saw.
And last but not least, the U.S. national team back in action. The next round of qualifiers in September. They're at home on September 11th at Crew Stadium in Columbus, but first they got to go down to Jamaica on September 7th. The Reggae Boys, a pretty good team, maybe the best other team in the group besides the United States. What do you expect out of those?
Well, that's going to be a tough one, especially as they go on the road and they're playing in Jamaica against a team that feels like they will qualify out of this group and maybe even challenge the U.S. to take top spot in this group. And so you go down to Jamaica and 4 days later you're playing the exact same team up in Columbus. Usually when they play in Columbus, it's against a team that won't play well in a cold weather environment. This is so early on in the fall that it's still going to be warm there, so that's not going to be a factor. But to play the same team twice within 4 days in games that really matter, that's going to be difficult, actually for both of these teams, but probably more difficult for the U.S. because they have to travel down and back. For Jamaica, they'll travel down early, get their training in, play their home game, and then come up. It's going to be a lot of fun.
There you go. Some early insight into the road to Brazil 2014. It has begun finally for the U.S. national team. That does it for us. Greg Lawless and Nick Furshaw. For all the coverage of the U.S. national team and the World Cup qualifiers, stay tuned to MLSsoccer.com.